A Japanese man in very vivid pajamas wakes up in a white, empty room with no doors, windows, or ceiling. When he gets close to one of the walls to take a closer look, he sees something strange sticking out of it, a male member-shaped protrusion. After poking it a few times, he presses the tip. This makes hundreds of baby angels come out of the floor and walls, giggle, and stay there for a few seconds before going back where they came from. One thing they do leave behind is that all of their members are now sticking out of the wall and floor. This stage is called learning. The man screams in fear as he sniffs the finger he used to press the strangely shaped button. He then cries out and begs for help from anyone who might be nearby, but no one helps. He chooses to start pressing the different buttons to see what happens. Every time he does this, a different random object, from a tiny toothbrush to a big vase, falls into room. When he presses same button again, he gets the same thing. That's why, when he tests this idea on one button, he gets a big pile of chopsticks. But his amusement doesn't last long. When he presses the button next to the chopsticks one, a small cart comes out of the wall and hits him in the legs. After he cries out in pain, the next button he presses turns into a butt that farts in his face. After hours, the man had put a lot of different things in the room. When he sends the ball toward the surface, it hits a button that gives him sushi. This makes him happy because he's been super hungry, but then he realizes he's out of soy sauce. He asks his kidnappers for it, but as usual, they don't give it to him. So, he keeps pressing one of the buttons until he has a lot of sushi but no sauce. The man finally gives up and eats the sushi, which he thinks is pretty good. When he's done the final piece, he hits the button for more food and gets angry when a bottle of soy sauce finally arrives. After pushing the bottle out of the way in anger, he presses a different button and gets a pair of old-fashioned 3D glasses. When he puts them on, he sees a baby angel pointing at his member. The man is happy because he thinks he may have found the answer. After pressing that button, he get countdown from 10 to 1. After countdown over, huge butt came from top and fart on him. After a few hours, he has read 5 volumes of a very entertaining manga, but when he presses a button to get the 6th, he gets the 7th. Frustrated, he tries other buttons, which give him 8 and 9, but still no 6. But when he presses the last button, he gets a big surprise. It opens a part of the wall that covers a door. The man is happy to have found this, but in his excitement, he can't remember which button opens the door. He picks one at random and is shocked to see an African man run from wall to wall. The second makes water fall on his head. The third one is the one he needs, so he runs to it as soon as the wall opens. But it close in front of his face immediately. The same thing happens on his second try. That's when he realizes that the door stays open as long as the tip is down, so he starts trying different things to get it open. First, he presses it with his foot to get into a running position. Then, he hits it with a fly swatter from as far away as he can, hoping that the distance will affect how fast he runs. None of these methods work, and neither do pulling it with a jump rope or hitting it with air from a fan. His next plan is to get on the cart and push it. But after a few tries, he realizes he just can't control it. He needs to find a way to keep the tip of the button down. He puts the big vase on top of it, but the button keeps sticking back up. The man figures out that he needs to fill the vase with something heavy to make it stay down. First, he presses the water button, but it doesn't work. No matter how hard he tries to make the water go somewhere else, it always falls on him. He tries again by putting sushi in the vase, but it gets so heavy that he can't even grab it. The neck of the vase is also too small for him to put his hand through, so he has no choice but to use chopsticks to take out the sushi one piece at a time. After a few seconds, when he is far enough away, he can just barely pick up the vase and move it closer to the buttons. Once he gets there, he has to put the vase on the floor because he can't remember which button it was. When he tries one, the African man comes out and accidentally bumps into the vase's base, causing it to crack and break in half. This drives the man crazy, and while he is screaming non-stop, he finds the right button and starts wrapping it with sushi. This, too, doesn't work, and the little member keeps showing up in the rice. The man then tries to cover the button with tape, and then with tape and a steel plate. But neither of those work. The door hitting him in the back hurts. So the man takes painkillers and takes a nap. When he wakes up, he wants to brush his teeth, so he presses a button to get water. But it was the wrong button, and this one shows a rope coming down from the ceiling. This makes him feel better right away because it gives him a new plan. He opens the door, then uses the rope to swing himself across the room and get to the other side before the door closes. When he tries to open the door behind the fake wall, he finds that it is locked. He gets back to the room just as the door is closing, but it still hits him on the way out. Frustrated, he kicks the wall, which makes one of the buttons work and reveals the key floating in the middle of the room. But, just like the door, it goes away when the button is pushed again, so the man needs to find a way to keep both the key and the door open. First, though, he needs to find the button again. He lost it when he got sidetracked. By looking at roughly where his foot would have hit the wall when he kicked it. He picks a button, only to have a dog come out of the wall and bark at him. The same thing happens when I press the next button, but the third time is a charm. The man walks backwards and grabs a piece of sushi, which he uses to mark the right button on the wall. He does this while keeping his eyes and pointing hand on the button. But when he pushes it, the dog comes back out. This time, he finds the button faster and goes with his plan. He makes the rope appear and swings on it to reach the different buttons, but it's still enough. As he falls to the floor, he sees a plunger that he had gotten from one of the many buttons. He realizes that he can use the plunger to touch the wall and push himself farther. After the first try, the plan works perfectly. By swinging on the rope and pushing himself with the plunger, he is able to push the button, grab the key, push the door button, and reach the door before it closes. He doesn't waste any time and quickly puts the key in the lock and turns it. When he attempts to open the door, he finds a nasty surprise. It also has a completely separate lock on the top that needs 3 numbers to open. The man rushes out and gets hit by the door as it closes. He throws the plunger at the opposite wall, which pushes the button that frees the African tribesman. As he watches him walk by, he understands something. There are 3 numbers painted on his top of the head, which must be the code he needs. Since the man only has a limited amount of time behind the door, he swings on the rope and jumps 3 times, once for each number that needs to be put in. The third time, he stays put and opens the door. It's a little hard to open, so he has to push harder. When he finally does it, the part of wall beside him closes, and making it impossible for him to open the door all the way. The man sits on the floor and begins to cry because he is so upset. He thinks about how much fun he had with the things he got from the buttons. He had been locked up there too, but at least he had room to move and things to do. Now he realizes that he didn't appreciate what he had at the time. He feels a breeze on his face from the left wall all of a sudden. As soon as he touches it, he finds a crack that shows it's a fake. He doesn't waste any time and pushes the panel open right away. He runs out of there and soon comes to a strange hallway floating in a completely dark area. He seems to run toward an exit for a very long time. And by the time he gets to a room, his hair is longer as well as the colors on his pajamas have faded. This room is also empty, and the door he uses closes as soon as he walks through it. Instead of baby angels, there are adult ones here, and they too disappear into the wall, leaving only their things to be used as buttons. This part is called practice. In the meantime, Antonio's family in a city in Mexico is worried because Antonio's father, a wrestler known as Escargot Man, is acting more quiet than usual. His wife thinks it might be because his next opponent is a lot younger than he is, but the grandfather says that experience, not age, is what matters. Sister Karen, Escargot Man's daughter, picks him up in her truck and drives him to the wrestling ring so he can get ready early by changing clothes and praying to the Virgin. As the time for the match to start gets closer, Sister Karen drives her van again to pick up Antonio and their grandfather so she can take them to see Escargot Man in action. Right before the show starts, Antonio and his grandfather locate some of the last seats. The Northern Tough Ones, which is made up of Super Demon and Tequila Joe, are the first team to enter the ring. Then Escargot Man and Silver Eagle come in as Kiss Me a Lot, which is their team name. Silver Eagle is the first one to fight for his team. He gets off to a great start, but the Northern Tough Ones quickly beat him when they fight him all at once instead of one by one. They keep pointing at Escargot Man and asking him to join the fight, but he won't until Silver Eagle uses a trick to make Super Demon and Tequila Joe hit each other, which lets Escargot Man get away. Escargot Man is also quickly beaten. But just as his opponent is about to hit him with a chair, the man in the mysterious room presses a button, which makes Escargot Man magically extend his neck and knock out both of his opponents with a blow to the head. The man notices that nothing is happening in the room, so he keeps pressing the same button. This makes Silver Eagle, the referee, Antonio, and even the bell get knocked out by Escargot Man. When the man sees that nothing is happening, he starts to try different buttons. During a show in Los Angeles, one person makes the singer of a metal band breathe fire over the crowd. The second one makes a Russian magician fail his trick when he tries to make his assistant disappear, and the third one makes a man in China bark at his own dogs. The man is about to give up when he sees light coming from above. Unlike the last room, this one doesn't have a ceiling, and he can see angels flying around in the distance. He decides to try something completely different this time. Instead of pressing the member buttons, he will use them to climb the walls. It works, and every time he grabs or steps on a button, something amazing happens on Earth, like flowers blooming or an elephant dying. The higher he goes, the more complicated the effects become. It's not just nature anymore, it's also people in both small and big things, like a toaster and landing on the moon. By the time he gets to the top, the man's hair and beard are long enough that he no longer needs to hold onto the wall. Now that he can float like the angels, and with all the training he got in the other rooms, he accepts his role as God and starts picking humanity's greatest hits on purpose instead of just pushing buttons at random. By the time he's done, he's surrounded by feathers instead of walls, and he goes through a glowing portal to get to the last room. This one has pictures of the continents on the walls, and the man sees a very huge button in front of him. This part is called Future. If you liked the video, please don't forget to subscribe us. It may be very simple for you, but is very important to us. Comment below on any suggestions of what movie recap should I do next. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.